everybody, welcome back to DLC Required, a podcast where gamers talk about gaming and whatever gamers talk about. This week, to kick off the new year, we have Joshua Carro. He is the amazing composer behind Tiny Tina's Wonderlands and now Borderlands 4. I love talking to this guy. I genuinely have such an interest in music. I don't know if some of you know this, but I was in band. I played French horn for like 10 years. So I'm a little bit of a music theory nerd in that department. But he's so much cooler than me. I can't imagine sitting around playing instruments and building everything. But I tell him about this too. I just remember being at FanFest and hearing the menu music for Borderlands 4 for the first time. And I think it activated some kind of sleeper agent in me that I didn't know was there. Music is one of my favorite ways to connect. And it's also so fascinating with the generative situation that music has to be for video games, especially in an open world setting. And Josh is a master of that. Like, he's been an absolute incredible source of all this. And I also geek about just general video game music with him. So he's a good friend. I'm so excited to have him back on. I can't wait for you guys to listen. And if you have any questions for him, I know he'd love to come back. So definitely drop him in. Enjoy, guys. This is DLC Required. Okay, I know we've talked a lot throughout the year about it, but I cannot find a double exposure vinyl anywhere, and it's breaking my heart. Like, I found a couple on eBay that are like $400, but they sold out so fast for that soundtrack. $400 for just the vinyl of the collection. It was $59 when they launched it on the site,
like
and
cavity filled or something.
Literally, but it's so good. I loved the soundtrack from it so much. But it's Life is Strange, so I feel like that was a no-brainer. Like, I've never not loved a Life is Strange soundtrack.
Sometimes I'll turn on the game, and you know how if you can like sit on your bed or you can like, and it'll play the soundtrack. I think it's in Before the Storm. There's a part like just in the main menu where you can go to mixtape.
Yes, that's before the Storm.
Yeah, and you just press it and it'll like play the entire soundtrack, but it plays it while she's like laying on her bed. It like goes to her laying on her bed, just chilling.
I've never tried it out. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. It's not vinyl, but it's like, hey, that's pretty cool, you know?
You
like,
still get the soundtrack. And no, like Life is Strange has so many of those moments where you do get to sit in it. Like, especially the first one, if you just sit down on the bench and watch things. Because I treat main menus the same way too. Like, for me, I just will load up a game and get so caught up in the main menu music that I just kind of want to do other things and sit there and work and listen to it. So I love when games give you that interactive moment to be able to just vibe with it.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because you can like turn it, like you can literally like in my living room, I'll turn it on, on the main TV, and I have like a pretty dope sound system in there.
That does not
and I'll go to the main menu and I'll be like, okay, let's listen to the mixtape in the main menu, and it has this cool option, and it immediately goes in the game, and it's her just chilling on her bed, like it's like in Unreal, it's like and it just plays the soundtrack, and it's kind of a cool ambience to have on, like not just the music, but you get to see that just like 3-minute loop of her just like chilling.
It feels so real, and like that's how music's supposed to be. Yeah. Like, you're just really experiencing it, and that's so much of what I really love about a lot of the soundtracks I'm talking about. But they're so specific to the game they're in, but they make very real emotions. Like, I have a very authentic response to like, oh, this is something I want to drive to. This is something I want to fall asleep to. This is something I'm overstimulated and I need to listen to.
Yeah, it really creates a vibe, and it's not just like that. Like, you can put in those elements in a soundtrack of like, this will do this, this will do this, this will do this, and you kind of like get the ball rolling, but they're not just like checking boxes. You know what I mean? Like, it's just fantastic artwork,
It is.
Music, and and they're not just like trying to tug like strings. They're like literally making amazing artwork,
I'm sure you have opinions on this, but I don't think we've actually talked about it. I just started playing it for the first time, but Expedition 33's soundtrack is incredible. But someone had pointed out to me that it actually, because it's in French, like you actually have spoilers for the game. Like, if you understand French and do that, like it's telling you things that's happening. And that was one of those moments for me. I'm like, there's so much thought that goes into the intentional music of it. But I remember opening just the main menu and being like, oh my God, I get it. Like, because so many of my friends be like, oh yeah, that was in my Spotify Wrapped. I'm like, I just haven't gone around to it yet, but it's been phenomenal.
I mean, I think in general, like people that care about, music that they're making for games, there is so much more that goes into it, like than most people would realize. Like for instance, in some of the ambient music that I compose for BL4, I'm like tuning, like the mode of the music or the piece, like the scale is tuned like to the ambient wind, meaning like it's in the same
Holy
like
shit.
things like that, just to like see if it fits, you know what I mean, or see like if it connects even more, because like something like wind, and I'm talking about like the background ambient sound,
Yeah.
it's like this low frequency, and um I'll be like, okay, this is an example, like what's 60 hertz? Okay, 60 hertz is around a C, you know and so I'll be like, okay, I'm going to make this piece in C or C minor or whatever, and kind of intentionally have that going on, and it like ties some of that together, if that makes sense.
No, that
But like,
absolutely makes sense.
things like that, most nobody would pick up on that, you know what I mean, unless they're crazy and they're like, holy cow, do you hear that the wind is in the same,
The same
pitch
key
as the
that
music?
yeah,
Like,
that's
yeah, the same
insane.
key, excuse me. you know um but yeah, it's just, you reminded me of that when you said that.
No, that's absolutely amazing. Which congrats on the Borderlands 4 launch. I know that's been, I'm sure, an insane, insane relief to have that out there. But you killed it. Congratulations.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah,
How
it's
how did this process change from, I know we talked about Wonderlands and some of the work on BL3, but you're very experimental, and like we talked a lot
mhm.
about the generation you're not expecting, and like that's always stuck with me ever since we talked about it with the Wonderlands main menu, when you're like creating your hero and it shifts throughout that. And I've
Yeah.
noticed when I pick up 4, it does feel like it's the maps do this with like the weather and the NPCs, but the music isn't excluded from that, where it feels very appropriately understanding the moment I am in. It's
Mhm.
not just I go through this area and I have this battle music, and it's this specific thing every time. And I think it's, if I get the title wrong, forgive me, but I think it's Where the Earth Breathes, that is one of the ones that in the
Oh yeah,
soundtrack really, really, it rewires something in my brain when I catch it on. Like I can just stop and I take
it's
in
weird, isn't it?
that scenic view a little bit more. And it's yeah, like you absolutely killed it. But was that process, being able to be from the game, like I'm assuming at the beginning with all this going on, I just how did that get informed, and what did you try new this time? I would say.
Yeah, I think I didn't. It's not okay. I did try to do new things, but what I really tried to do this time was to go deeper, um, like deeper in detail, as far as um things like what you mentioned, like we're in a different spot. This could affect the music, like the weather affects the music. Maybe it brings in different. For instance, I can't remember which spot it's in, so you have to excuse me, because when you work on something like for like 5 years, you actually start to forget things
Oh,
like
100%. That's part of
like
the creative
where,
process.
like yeah, like I don't remember which piece I'm talking about, but there's moments where, like, if it starts raining, that's like a hook that we can use in WYs to bring in different layers of the track that's playing. So like, that's something that I wasn't able to do in Wonderlands, because we just weren't doing that. It wasn't an open world type experience. This time around, I was trying new things, but I was really just trying to do deeper things that I couldn't do, because Wonderlands wasn't an open world, right? And
The
Borderlands 4 is more
scale
of an
of
open world.
Borderlands 4
Yeah,
too. Yeah.
yeah, it's more of an open world experience. And so there's a lot, there's a lot more things that come with it, you know. Um, so I'm sorry if I'm jumping all over the place, but like things I tried, not necessarily tried to do different, but there were things that I had to adapt to, like, there's no maps, like, meaning like there aren't 20 maps like there were in Wonderlands.
Yeah.
Um, there are, let's say 20 maps in BL4, but they're all connected somehow,
Yeah, you're
and they're
not
all like,
loading into here's Three Horns Divide,
yeah,
here's, Heroes
mhm,
Pass and going like
Mhm.
separate from the like boss arenas for each of the individual like zone
Yeah.
there with you know, like Callus and things like that. You have that
Yeah.
very much. You could be joining someone's game co-op from across the map that's in it somewhere completely else. You're fast traveling and you want it to be
Mhm.
seamless because there you don't have that. You have a even audio cue really for transition there. It's just all flowing together.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I could paint a picture for you like so if you imagine this big map and there aren't 20 zones, there's way more than that in BL4, but let's say there's 20. If you're like making a quilt and you have 20 squares, they're all separate squares, right? So let's think of all those squares as ambient music. Let's say that Grasslands area has this beautiful where the earth breathes, music. And then the city has this like where the city sleeps music, and it's
Hmm.
totally different instrumentation, right? It's all kind of cyber sounding electronic stuff. The Grasslands is more like earthy, organic instruments like orchestra and violins and voice and percussion. But let's say that those two squares are right next to each other. So if you're here, you hear different music. If you're here, you hear different music. But what if you're here, right?
Yeah.
So I did this thing where because there's so many different, not just zones, but little like micro zones, the closer you get to a border, I'll start to introduce stems from the other ambient music.
Oh my
So
god.
you'll hear like, I'm making this up, but I did do this. Like you'll hear maybe some of the melodies or like instruments from the city when you get close to the city, but you're still hearing the grasslands stuff at the same time. And it sort of weaves the world together in a way. And that was also one of my like I would say artistic ways of sonically creating borderlands. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Because it is like a border, like,
Yeah,
but
what
it's
is
like,
Borderlands? It's, you know,
yeah,
that
yeah,
line between
hmm
everything. So having
yeah,
that artistic for the, you know, to seal your words there, way to do that, it is
mhm,
really powerful because it's, you know, even just like the fade of a DJ and the playlist kind of thing, like how
yeah,
that's so important to the mark of a good DJ and like a good playlist and a good mix. But doing that
hmm
in an open world game, I can't imagine how
yeah.
many variables you have to keep in mind there.
You read my mind because the next thing I was going to say is that now creates so many, not just variables, but things you have to take into account. Like, okay, what happens if this happens? What happens if that happens? What happens if that happens? But that's all the stuff you do in pre-production and planning, and you do your best to create this really awesome, you know, idea for how the ambient music is going to work. And that's just the ambient music, and but once you get a really good clear idea of a simple thing like that, it informs the rest of the stuff. And I can give you an example. So once I had that idea going, when I was composing the music for the cinematics, I started thinking like, oh my gosh, like now I can start to introduce like, okay, they're in the grasslands. I can introduce music from here, but they're fighting with this person that exists in the city. So I can start mixing those sorts of instruments together in the cinematic music, right? And so maybe this is a spoiler, but when there's the elevator trouble when they're trying to go up the elevator,
Yeah.
and so like it starts off with this very like heavy orchestral music, right? But right when you think that he's going to fall off, he's hanging on the edge there, the music slowly does this genre shift, is what I'm calling it. It shifts from like orchestral music into this like indie shoegaze rock. And that indie shoegaze rock track that you're hearing when that happens is the main menu music slowed in half.
I love when things do that. That's so
Like
fucking sick.
Like, so I'm sorry. I know that was a lot of words for something not very exciting,
I think
but
it's exciting. I think people
um,
listening think that's exciting. That's why they're listening. Like that's sick as fuck.
like you'll hear it, and it's kind of like even if you don't recognize it, it brings some sort of feeling to you where you're like, this is important or this means something. But really, what you're hearing is the very first piece of music you heard when you turned the game on. You know what I mean?
It's
In
almost
one of
like
the
your
most
own way of
important
doing a
spots.
needle drop. Yeah, like
Yeah,
you're being able
yeah.
to psychologically like get your brain. I love
Yeah.
when things do that. When any type of revisit theme
Yeah.
is one of my favorite things, but being able to be like, oh, it's this, but in this key, or it's this, but slowed, or it's
Hmm.
this, but because it does have such an impact that I don't think you clock it the first few times you experience it really of what's happening. But when you do, you're
Yeah,
like, holy
totally.
shit, there's so much meaning behind that beat.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's something that's like it's a lot of fun to be able to express, because yeah, we're like, developers, artists, musicians and whatnot making these things. But when we can do something that actually has meaning in it like that, we're not just designers just designing stuff for the job. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
we're we're going deeper and doing things like that and
It's still a
really giving things
creative
meaning.
gig. Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course. But it's just something that's really fun to be able to do that sort of thing. And you can't really do that sort of thing unless you're really developing something for a longish amount of time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like I lived with this thing for about 5 years.
Half a
And
decade
like
you were living with Borderlands 4 in your head and how to make that come to life in
yeah, dude.
anything
Like
audible.
I mean, the game, like I mean, if you were to really think about how much material is in the game as far as music, I mean, there's, because it's like generating its own variations. I mean, there's hundreds of hours, but like you wouldn't believe, like that's just nothing compared to what, like what all of us were making over that amount of time. I mean,
We're getting stuff
you
that
know,
comes in the game, like the layers you have to go before
yeah,
that. But I'm thinking of even just like the world events happening in Borderlands 4. Like you have that new variable. So on top of being open world, you can have like if you're going somewhere and you're in that position where you are getting that transition, like overlap
mhm,
of that Venn diagram, but then suddenly you have a world boss event and something like that, and you need to be able to transition
right,
into that. There's so
yep,
much flexibility. I feel like that it creates more shackles in that way, but so
for
much room to
sure.
play with of that type of mechanic. But was this your first like truly open world game in that way? Like was this
Yeah, I would say so. In for a
damn,
video game, I have to say though that my work in general is kind of a metaphor for an open world game. So it's not
I love
really,
that.
I would say, like the first time that I had to, create a system, a musical system for something that has this many variables in it. But it's definitely the first open world game experience that I've composed for, in a game medium. Um, I took all the skills like that I'd learned, over more than 2 decades, of doing a lot of these sorts of things. Um, and but then still, like even you said, it creates these limitations. And then that's like the next step of like, okay, we can do all this stuff, we can make all these crazy things, but we gotta like, make sure we do the right things, you know, because we can think all the way to the stars, really. Like we can, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was the other challenge too of it's like, okay, how is this going to be cohesive and how,
How
um,
do those building blocks work with that when you're able to then
yeah,
go ham with everything else?
yeah. And like in my humble opinion, like I think we did an okay job, but like, I'm not going to sit here and say that we like, did everything like, it's hard for me to like, and that's my opinion, like, someone else might say like, no, I think we did like the best, possible thing. But,
You're when you're that
I think
close
there
to
were
it
definitely
too.
things,
Yeah.
like there are definitely things that we couldn't do or we missed maybe, and I know that some of the audience brings that up too, like when they have feedback about, the way they liked something or didn't like something. And a lot of that's valid, and you know, I'll say between you and me, but it really is between me and everyone. But a lot of the time they're right about some of the things they say. But what I think what they miss is like knowing what was actually happening at the time, and being like,
What
okay,
went to
yeah,
that decision or why that happened. Yeah.
yeah,
We're missing the context of it,
yeah,
but the end result commentary is often the same.
yeah, totally. And like I'll say one more thing about it. Like it leaves room for the next time because like And this is something I always tell, like, because I don't know if I told you, but I do a lot of mentoring to composers and stuff. But the main thing that always comes up with them is like, you know, how do I finish a piece? How do I finish a piece? And I'm like, just finish it. You're not going to make everything perfect, but I got news for you. Like when you finish that, the next piece you start making, you're going to remember all those things you didn't do, and those are the things you're going to fix. You know, so trust me, there's plenty of things.
I don't know if there's ever been
Oh,
any type of project, no matter how much time I've had on, like scripts I've had for 10 years, kind of thing that I'll send out and
oh
I
my
still
God.
won't find things that I'm like, fuck, I wish I changed that or did that, or I still don't like how that ended, or I wish this
Mhm.
act was different. Like you're always, or like if I send out a draft, no matter how many times I've looked it over, I will find a typo right after I hit send kind of vibe. Like
Oh
you're never
God.
finished. You're
Yeah.
never you never feel good fully, even when
Oh
you
man.
can be proud of it. Like it's your baby. You're gonna be like, well, you
It's
know all
true.
the what ifs, you know all the darlings you had to kill, and you know all the limitations, because again it comes with that money versus time. Like 5 years is a lot of time to spend on it, but also
It
it's
is.
still it's so much fucking work you have to do in that amount of time. Like, and there are only so many
Yeah.
people and so much output you can make to do that. So it'd be like if we had unlimited time, manpower, and budget and creativity to do this, this is something we want to
Hmm.
do. But that ends up being something that you're kind of forever like, oh, but if we had that, and people don't necessarily know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of a double-edged sword too, because what is that game called? I mentioned it last time. Is it called Star Citizen that they've been working on?
I
Is
think so, yeah.
no, it's not Star Citizen. They've
Stuff.
been working on it for like a long time and it still hasn't come out, and they've raised over like $900 million. It's
Oh
like a,
god, I'm gonna
you know
look
what
this up.
it's like,
Yeah,
I
I know what
can't
you're talking
remember
about.
what
This is no, yeah.
so there's like an other side to that too, where it's
It
like,
is Star Citizen.
okay,
Yeah, it is Star
it
Citizen.
is okay, all
Yeah, I was
right.
like, I thought you
Awesome.
were right, and then I was like, oh no, you have me. It
Yeah.
is Star Citizen. Yeah.
I'm not that egotistical. Like if I think there's one little doubt in my mind that I'm not right, I will not take credit.
Food.
Um, but no, but like I was saying, there's that other side too, where it's like, okay, you have all the money, you have all the time, but then it's like you spend 10 years making this thing, and there's also evolution in there too. Like, is it even, you know, uh relevant anymore? Is it like, should we be spending 10 years making a game? Should we be, should
No.
we so it's like, and I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer, but it's like there's definitely like a sweet spot and a balance of that whole development cycle. That's why it's called development.
I've
It's
I've definitely
uh
had projects that have been they're green light in various stages of production, and then like COVID hit and everything kind of, how the industry went. But it was one of those things that's been 10 years now in development, where when I wrote it, it was so like risky and advanced and,
mhm,
like forward. And now I'm like, it is it is so on the nose. It's not even on the nose anymore. Like
yeah,
it's so beyond past when it could have really hit at that point. And that doesn't mean that it won't come around again, but now it needs a complete rework if that world is going to live in the
sure.
same way. And that's part of it. Like if it hit the window before, in the before times, then that would have a completely different, even on paper, reading of it, because people read it now, and with the context of everything that's happened, like that's just part of development. You can't control that. And if every
Mhm.
art is some form based on our own experiences in the world, like you're gonna have that bleed, which I guess is
Oh
kind
yeah.
of the thought I had with four too, when the menu music first started up. I think it's research is the menu music. um
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
I fucking love it. But when it first started up and
Oh,
like
man.
wired something in my brain, I was like, this feels like such a specific genre. Like it's such a tone for the game. It's very cinematic. And
Mhm.
a lot of the lo-fi is the wrong word for like Borderlands 2 menus and stuff like that. But you have that more, relaxed here. But like there's something with the
Sure,
4-1
sure.
that feels epic
I'm glad you're bringing
cinematic.
this up.
um
Hmm.
yeah, how early into development did that vibe stick? Because I feel like there are things, I think it's Transcendent Haven maybe, where like I hear a bunch of like French horns at the beginning and I'm like, oh yeah, but like
Yeah,
that's not something you hear consistently throughout the soundtrack either.
yeah.
And so it's like I was
Mhm.
like, this is such feels like such an intentional decision to have that epic cinematic feel at the beginning, which is a departure from what any of the previous main menus really felt like.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. First of all, Transcendent Haven is actually the track that plays if you go in the Transcendental camp.
Oh, is
If
it?
you go in the transcendental camp, it's kind of like this kind of it's like a safe house in a way, but
Yeah,
it's big. You know? That is the track that's playing in their camp.
that's really
Because
sick.
I wanted to create this sort of like literal transcendentalist haven, like a safe house like feeling. And I think just everyone on the team, and randomly too, for some reason, agreed that they just really loved that track. We don't care if it's like in a random weird spot. We think it'd be cool on the OST. So that's one of the reasons it ended up on there. Um, but as far as menu music, this is something else I like to do too, is like I'm the kind of artist that if something is needed to do a certain thing, I'm open to that idea. But if there's a way that we can do something completely different to where everyone expects, like everyone kind of expects main menu music to be like a chill vibe because you're sitting there, you're watching like, and I'm sorry if I'm speaking in generalities, um, but I was like, why not just make them like excited as soon as it like turns on, Like that's what I wanted was like to be like excited when the main menu hits. Like we've been waiting for this for so long. Like boom, here it is. And
I
it eventually goes into a chill zone. But
it does no, but like I just got goosebumps when you're saying that because again, I remember so much at FanFest, and again, I preface it every time I bring it up because I was so sleep deprived. There was very little I could. I
oh
was like,
yeah.
I'm not going to play this game well, but it's something that we'd all been waiting for years, and like anyone in that early access specifically, just
Mhm,
your life is kind of Borderlands at that point, and
mhm.
so opening it like they had all the things set up. I know I came over for a sound check and I was like in timekeeper. I couldn't move around. I was tired, like whatever. I put on the headphones and I was like, oh my God, like this is like it's here. Like it just shot like energy into me for a minute, being like, I'm
Oh, I'm
gonna
so
at
glad to
least
hear you say that.
take it in. And what I ended up doing because I knew I couldn't really gameplay the way I wanted to between the contacts and the lack of sleep and whatever is I just like drove around the map basically. I was like, let's see how far
Mhm.
like things let me go, let's take in the world, let's see what happens. And so I got to experience a lot of that, like just the music and the atmosphere and stuff
Yeah.
that was my first
Mhm.
experience with Borderlands 4 where I was like this feels so like Borderlands in a way that I didn't expect it to because it is so different in that regard.
Yeah.
um
Mhm.
because do think you elevated. I love all the soundtracks. Let me just say that like this is not a dig on any of the previous
Oh
soundtracks. I
yeah,
own them
yeah.
all on
No, no,
vinyl.
me too. And I think that literally everybody that's been involved in any Borderlands soundtrack, it did an amazing job. Like I don't, yeah.
100%.
I'm
I
not
remember
comparing.
sending you the picture when I found the Borderlands 2 vinyl and I lost it. I was like,
Oh
this is
yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah. And I'm like,
yeah.
I adore all these soundtracks for different reasons, but I as someone who was in band for so long and just has such appreciation for like a classical music
Oh, that's
and
right.
the
Yeah.
cinematic stuff, I was so excited that it did feel like it was something that could have been a movie soundtrack. It was something that could have been
Yeah.
something I was excited to get sheet music
Mhm.
for as a little French horn player
Sure.
doing stuff. And it was in a way that I think it was the cut scene with RJ first, like that reveal, I
Yeah.
think that I was like, there's just so much put together that just hits so well. And I credit Sam Winkler a lot for like the narrative of like those cutscenes, like a lot of the emotional
Oh
hits, but
yeah.
like
Oh
the
yeah. They did a fantastic job on
oh
that.
yeah,
That's
I
shit's really hard, dude. Like,
narrative's fucking hard.
I have
Writing's
more
fucking
to
hard.
say on that in a different way, but like, please keep going.
No, but it was like that scene and then the scene where we kill Zadra and the timekeeper and stuff like that. I'm like, so many of these beats that felt so painful but so perfectly played out to me in a narrative sense. Like you can't have that without that atmosphere and that music understanding the moment it's in. But
Hmm.
we still are in this epic looter shooter that's supposed to be fun and silly at times, and especially with Borderlands 4 being like pick your menu. Like you have so many different
Hmm.
options. You can play like this and be absurd and be very Borderlands and be focused on the gore and the loot explosions, or here's a whole ecosystem of people and their world that you're coming into, and here's the politics of it. You have so many different vibes now with it that somehow it still all feels cohesive in even just a
Hmm.
limited OST we get, because obviously to your point there's so much more music out there in this
Yeah.
game than we get on like a released OST in that way.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, yeah, it's kind of like the full gamut, like that's kind of the way I'm thinking of it. It's like it has that cinematic stuff in there too, but it has like all this, yeah.
Video game music, like you're still composing,
Mhm.
and that's has to be such a unique medium too. And like I know
Oh
we talked about
yeah.
it before, compared
Mhm.
to any like commercial composing or just even hobby composing, because you do have the interactive elements. And even I imagine something like a game like Borderlands where you're picking your character in that regard too, and that through line being there and having it fit all four of those personalities and still feeling cohesive with the
Yeah.
story.
That was a limitation that I faced early on because early on I wanted to, and this was a challenge that I was only able to sort of express in the cinematics where certain characters in the cinematics that don't change. So not your main character, but main like characters that are in the cinematics that don't change. Trying to give them themes that are very specific to them. But originally I was like, okay, I want to have a theme for, you know, all of the player characters so that even when you're in the cinematics, the music is different if they're in the cinematic. But that immediately quadrupled, the amount of like music that would have had to been made. And also there were just other things too and time. Um, so if that makes sense, that was something that was like, how am I going to solve this? And so I just kind of did my best to make it fit the emotional space, no matter which player you are, you know.
I love
Um,
that. No,
you know,
I really, not to say you're just like blow smoke, but I do think that at least came across to me in the few. I haven't done a playthrough fully of all four yet, but it does feel very
oh sure,
true to
sure.
me. And um, the like three and a half, two and a half, basically I've played through that feel so true to the game itself.
Hmm.
I feel like you've probably talked so much about just going into this, and again being years in the making, and how even going about making video game music like at different stages, because you're seeing, cinematics further done, you're composing for stuff that's not necessarily final yet, and going through all that. But
Yeah.
is there a part of the process that you really haven't been able to speak to as much as you want to right now, and that's been something that either to the people you mentor or just in general with game music that you really love, or a particular challenge you had with that?
Yeah, it's just I think, yeah, because I think that you're constantly thinking about where am I in the process, in this very long process, and where's the finish line, or where are we, what's going on. Obviously you have a plan of what's happening, you're in different, you know um but really what I want to say to them is like, just like enjoy the moment you're in and do the best that you can. And like for instance, like I said, I composed like hundreds of hours of music. I mean, in 5 years for this game. And Where the Earth Breathes was the very first piece of music I wrote for this
Was
fucking game.
it? That's
Like it was
insane.
like day one, like seriously day one. Day one, you know what I did? Um, in pre-production, I scoped the size of the game. I was like, okay, it's these different biomes. There's like a grasslands, there's a mountains, there's a city, there's Shadowlands. And I drew this map and I was like, okay, on a whiteboard. And I was like, I want this kind of music here. I want this kind of music here. I want this kind of music here, this kind of music here. I was like, okay. Um, and I was like, oh, let's start with the grasslands, you know. And that was the first piece of music I wrote.
That's amazing that that made it all the way to
And
the
like,
OST with that. That's incredible.
yeah. But the reason that I was saying like, appreciate the moment you're in is because I didn't think that was going to end up on the OST. I was, and also trust me, there's hundreds of variations I wrote for that are in the game. You know what I mean? That play in different ways. But that was like the first theme I wrote for BL4 was Where the Earth Breathes. And it's not really Borderlands, you know what I mean? It's like this, like, if anything about, uh, like modern composers, like that piece is very close to someone like John Luther Adams, who people say is a minimalist, but he's not a minimalist. He just writes like long, beautiful drone pieces. Um, but that piece is like very much in the heart and inspired by a composer like that, who I love very much and you know, met a few times. It's not Borderlands, you know what I mean? But it's grasslands. Like it breathes that space, you know. Romantically, that was the first piece I wrote on day one, and like it ended up on soundtrack like day zero. So that's kind of that was kind of cool. Um, you
I feel
know,
like that would be so validating. Like it's like you've had the idea of what Borderlands 4 then feels like and
yeah,
just yeah, the ethos of all that. And then for it to be one of the first things that end up on that OST and to stay in the game after all those years, like yeah, you had your finger on the pulse of
yeah,
what you wanted to be. And to that credit, it's not very Borderlands, but it does have that like to take steal from the title, it does feel like it's breathing, like it's living with it. And it's
yeah.
not genre breaking, it's not anything, it's just
Hmm.
it's a feeling like it does a really
Yeah,
good job for me of feeling just very much like a moment in time that you want to sit in and listen to, and those moments of like
yeah,
life is strange where you want to sit on the bed and just take in the environment with
yeah.
it.
And they're also kind of like in a way, like not just that piece. There's many different examples of that in the other mediums and disciplines. But like, this was the first game where Gearbox was trying to make an open world experience for Borderlands. And I literally remember people saying, like, we need to figure out ways to make this world breathe because it's not 20 maps separated by a loading screen. Like, we need to make this space breathe, you know?
Yeah,
And so that piece is almost kind of like a subconscious, expression of that, because you're sitting in these, design meetings talking about concepts and you know but it comes out in the work, and that's like the next thing I was going to say is like that's why I tell students a lot, or just people in general, to trust their intuition, because that literally was the first piece that I wrote, so in a sense that's like the intuition of like the whole thing, and it ended up holding up, over something, or at least having some sort of effect, um you know
I mean I really no words other than the validation, honestly, I feel, because yeah, it is so easy to overthink any type of creative project, but when you have a team or these shifting parts and you're having the kind of environment that game building is in, where it's very dependent on other departments and other moments and this and everything's kind of feeding into each other at that point. How that evolves, having something done that early that does resonate like that, would I imagine give you the
yeah.
confidence to continue trusting your gut and taking those swings.
Yeah, and like, it's easy for me to say what I just said, but I've been practicing that sort of discipline for more than 2 decades. So like
Yeah.
after a certain amount of time, you learn to trust your intuition in certain ways, and but it starts with you trusting yourself no matter how much you've practiced it, because you got to learn that process somehow. Um, you know and we're talking about, thinking too much can ruin things, and yes, that's very true, but at the same time there is a certain amount of thought that needs to go into things, and it's all about this balance, you know because we could sit here and be like, I call it hippy dippy. We can be hippy dippy and just be like,
Run
yeah,
off
just write
vibes.
whatever, throw it in,
Yeah.
it's going to be great, it'll be great, and it might be 70% great, but maybe that other 30%, is like, the thought process and things behind it, or maybe it's the opposite,
Well,
um
also you wouldn't get the
but it's a
moments
balance.
like the
So
the transitional beats and things like that if you were just going with vibes, and it wouldn't necessarily fit together. You wouldn't have those themes recurring, or like you have the craft and the discipline and the talent and the time spent doing this to be able to make those decisions and have those eh, like I feel like when you're going with your gut or just kind of like figuring that vibe, when you have that kind of experience and that foundation there, some of that stuff bleeds in. And it's a difference between even
mhm.
the big metaphor in writing is like, are you like you know do you garden, do you plant seeds and like watch them grow, or are you just kind of like spaghetti at the wall, do you just write and see what happens? And I've done both, but so much of the time, like if I over plan something, I can and go hit the beat, but I can also get a very similar, finished product if I just go with the flow and see where it takes me. I'm like, oh, I did have 3 acts in there, that did break down into
Yeah.
5, and it just naturally happens. But that's because you have the foundation there to know what you're
Yeah.
going for organically. And like
Yeah.
even acting's that big one, like you're talking about,
Oh,
needing to get out of your head. Like no matter, Oscar winners talk all the time about that first take is the scariest thing in the world on your first dance set, like first job, first whatever. It does not matter how much you do it, but it's because you have that confidence in yourself and that repetition and all of that you can go and make those choices and expand that. And I feel like music is such a thing that is so foreign to a lot of people, because music theory is such a beast that it people overlook how intentional it does have to be when music is such a medium that it does come from the soul. You can't just be like, I'm going to make the world's greatest pop song and like write it out. You can't
yeah.
formulaic.
And even you're talking about music theory, like, music theory and mathematics is really like it's a way of expressing things that are in nature. It's not really a way of creating nature. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you can recreate ideas based off of concepts. But like if you're just trying to write a piece based off of a musical or a music theoretical idea and it's good because of that idea, then it's sort of empty. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It doesn't mean that it's not technically good, or proficient, but I'll tell you, like, even though pop music or pop songs follow a certain recipe, like, there are talented people like creating the thing. It's not as easy as just like a person at a computer knows the recipe and they're typing in the recipe and out comes
You can't
whatever,
generative AI the pop hit kind of thing. It's yeah. It's not
No.
the average of what
So
we're doing.
it's a balance. It's a balance for sure, you know. And you can always see too when the balance is off. You can see when something's good, or you can also see when something is not so good. And it's usually because the balance is off.
I'm so curious. Have you listened to Epic the Musical at all? Like
No.
it started like a big thing on TikTok, but it's this um like Greek mythos, incredible composer, but it just a lot of discourse I see on it about like the lyricism is not the best in the world to some people's thing, but his understanding of music theory is what like my girlfriend will go on forever about just the callbacks that are there and the tying in the emotional through line of stuff where it's like
Hmm.
that kind of stuff is why he's meeting with Lin-Manuel Miranda and they're doing stuff, and it's taken so much. They've had vinyl prints and things like that because it is so true that like you can
Oh
tell when
yeah,
something's soulless, and like his passion is in that in the composition, and the lyrics are
totally,
just a vehicle for getting it out there. But even if there were no lyrics in the song, you would be able to follow that story. Like it is
totally.
such a beautiful piece of composition that has
Mhm.
gone viral in that way. So I would definitely check it out just from a composer. I really want to know your thoughts on it from just
Absolutely.
because that's always what I see where people want to disagree about the lyrics or the just plot or anything like that. People are like, this is an incredible piece of just showcasing that kind of storytelling through that understanding of music theory and that understanding of the composition to be able to go and do this. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
incredible.
And that's like, and like also like, I don't think that should be confused, with maybe what I was saying, but like, there's so much artistry and like these artists that are making things that are amazing. They know so much, a thousand levels deeper than the person hearing it, the random person
100%.
hearing it for the first time. And that's why it's so beautiful because, a good artist can make something and people can look deeper into it and find those things you're talking about. Like, and that's what's beautiful about art and just in general is that it's infinitely deep and,
Well, it's also, I
you
think,
know,
has to be unexpected. I always go back to the bit where Steven Spielberg tells a story when John Williams showed him the Jaws theme for the first time and like what he was thinking, and he thought it was a joke.
mhm,
And that's one of the most iconic pieces in movie music now. And it's one of the things like, no,
yeah,
like it's hard to think about, oh, we question John Williams and this and, whatever. It's like, it's a joke piece. It doesn't matter. But like Jaws is ubiquitous. Like that is such an
yeah,
effective composition, but it's not something that was done before, not something that people would have thought to sit down to do because it knows when to break the rules basically. Um,
Totally.
and so
Yeah.
it's understanding your own understanding, I feel like, and being able to flex that a little bit, which I have talked
100%.
to composers who would never be able to do, in their opinion, what you do, which is that very generative, taking in all these pieces of this game and this open world and what we're doing, because they like the more contained, like it's for this scene, this moment, this is the
Yeah.
lead in. But having that player control in there is something that intimidates a lot of really seasoned people.
hmm But and to be fair, that's like the nature of Borderlands games. It's a very generative experience, especially in the 4, in its own way. Number one, because there's so many different subgenres just thematically happening, not even music, just like, you know, Western and sci-fi. Like how many things are between there, like a lot. Like, so how many different variables and I know that's kind of a dumb thing to say, but
I
like,
don't think it's dumb. I mean,
you
that's why
know,
Firefly got
um,
canceled. They didn't understand horses in space. Like it's a
yeah.
very in between genre.
Yeah. But it's like that's the nature of that game, and so that's why I approach it that way. It happens to be one of my strengths, but I do understand, some games do require something that is totally bespoke and certain, So no negativity about that on my side, but no, I know what you mean.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely just a skill in such a way that I can't imagine being able to do both. It's this, it's the same as just improv basically, but you're having to do it for an extended period of time, years in advance, and predetermine what every single outcome could be and put that in there and then make it work and
Yeah.
make it feel cohesive. There's a lot to it. But with that, even if it's not on the OST, do you have like a track that is just very near and dear to you that's been your favorite piece of this, making you pick a child if possible?
Like for BL4?
Yeah, for BL4.
Oh my God, dude. Like I listen to them I listen to them during my practice at night. I have um I have a weird schedule, but
Same.
my 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 second I do 2 sessions a day. Um they're about 4 to 6 hours per block, but my second block is starts basically now, but since I'm on vacation,
Hell yeah,
um
baby.
I'm hanging with you. So
Exactly.
um
It's work.
no, but I listen to stuff and I listen to stuff I've been working on or old stuff I made. Yeah, there's like a whole oh my God, there's like a whole album of like orchestral, like insane orchestral music that you'll never ever hear that was made for Borderlands 4. And I listen to it every single day. Not every day, but like I
No,
listen
I'm
to it
so
often
jealous. That's amazing.
because I'm this like all my heroes would be so proud of me. I'm like I'm like Copeland would just like he would be so proud of me and like my teacher Gunther Schiller would be so proud of me. He'd be like, "Good boy,"
Do that work.
in that kind of cheesy way. It's so cheesy,
We need cheesy. I think
but
people need to embrace the cringe and cheese a little bit more. It's
um,
necessary.
but hey, it's the other cool thing about it is like nothing goes to waste. Like, because it's there, like it doesn't mean I can't use it for another title or another thing, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there's this like, and it's like, I mean, it's like symphony length. I mean, it's like there's over an hour and 20 minutes of like this like gargantuan, insane orchestra piece. I'm talking like it's not insane like if complex music like Brian Ferneyhough or Stockhausen or
Yeah.
Xenakis. It's not like that, but for the scene we're in, for the mainstream scene we're in, like you've never heard anything like that. It's way too physically demanding, technically demanding, like confusing, and
I
it
would
has to be played perfectly or
I
else.
would, oh God, as a musician, oh my God, I would beg the release of the tape. But to your point, it's something you could use later or repurpose or break apart or learn from. So I won't say that we need that, but we need that. Like I selfishly would think there would be even a small audience that wants to hear something like that.
Oh yeah. No, I have all these ideas for like, hey, Gearbox, every development studio always does like an art station blast of like, hey, this is what all our concept artists did that you never will see, you know. I was like, why don't we have one for audio, like where audio shows all their first mock-ups? you know?
It would be so sick. Like the main menu, even
You know how many
like in
people would listen to
3
that stuff?
has like
Like,
yeah, because I feel like so many things like even. God, I was about to say 5 years ago, but I'm thinking like 2016, so like 10 years ago, would come with like, hey, here's your Overwatch CD that has some things on here, or
mhm,
the Life is Strange kind of thing where you have the menu you can go through and play the soundtrack. But even Borderlands 3 had a lot of the you're seeing half finished pieces or where this started and kind of the behind the scenes of all that. I think there would be an
yeah.
audience, even if it's just students
Oh
to
man,
start at that
totally.
point, but for the evolution of how we got here, some cut pieces of music or any of it. Like, hey, we really wanted themes for each of these characters. This is what ended up happening. This is here you go. Because
Yeah.
that kind of love letter, it's so much work that goes into this. And we have the art
Mhm.
book and the concept books, which I love. But yeah, having that in like an audio would be so cool.
Oh yeah. And like really what goes like one of the biggest reasons that stuff falls behind is because of the documentation process. I'm the type of I'm the type of artist that like I record everything.
Yeah.
Like if I'm gonna sit down and like write a thing for something, like and I can make a video out of it or it's important or it's like relevant, like I'll record it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Um and like but that also requires, archiving things and dating things and like it's book work, Um but I did all that stuff for BL4. Like so like I have studio sessions of all the ambient music I made, me playing flute, me like playing hand drums, like everything, you know, playing drum kit, all the stuff,
So you need a documentary,
and
is what I'm hearing. You need like a making of, and you have footage.
oh my gosh, yeah. Maybe, but the important thing though is like, um, maybe we're not seeing it now, but it's there, and for later, maybe in 20 years of 30 years, and Gearbox is like, hey, we did this. Here's footage from 30 years ago when we made BL4, or something. So that's my message to a lot of folks is like document your work, the best you
Yeah.
can. And yeah, it's a pain in the butt, but if you get a workflow going where you can just press record and be like, okay, I don't, um, that's super valuable.
I love that so much. Are we, if I missed the announcement for it or not thinking about it, then that's on me. But are we going to see a vinyl from BL4? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know the info, honestly, so I can't say yes or no. I have no idea. I assume they would.
Yeah, 2K
Um,
Gearbox, if you're listening, we need to complete our collection. So like this needs to happen. But no, I
yeah,
assumed I would have seen it by now, which is the question. So I was hoping I had just missed it or something up
yeah,
your
I don't
sleeve.
know. I can't remember what the time what the delay was from Wonderlands because I remember when Wonderlands came out. I don't think the vinyl came out until a little bit
Immediately
later.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it was immediate. So I think it's probably. I mean, I can't imagine they wouldn't, but who knows?
Even if it's a limited run,
Um,
like I that would go for money. Like Borderlands collectors are serious, but I
yeah.
can't help and stop and look at video game finals anytime. I'm still looking for like my Outlast and BioShock and all the ones I'm never gonna find. And
Oh man. Hmm.
Borderlands 4 would be a sick one. Also the cover art is sick. Like it looks
Yeah, they
really
did.
cool.
Yeah, they always do an amazing job. Like even just like the concept art. All the artists there are great, but man, the concept art folks there are just like insane. I mean, it's like it's the most beautiful artwork you see. You're like, why can't I'm
This
not
be in the
talking
game.
shit, but
No, it's
like,
yeah.
why can't that be the game, guys? Like, let's do that. But I understand it's not that easy.
No, that's me looking
Um,
through even just the publicly released stuff sometimes, like the concept book of these, areas
yeah,
that are just gorgeous. I'm like, holy shit, just like that. Give me that. But it's a whole different art style, and I know that. But I can't imagine how exciting that evolution would be and being part of that collaborative process as, you're getting this updated, artwork or cinematics that you're having to craft for.
yeah, isn't tight.
Thank you. It's like I muted myself and then not long enough. Is there anything I have plenty here to run with and do that, but is there anything you want to plug that you're wanting to do soon after your vacation or anything at all that you wanted to get in there at all? There's no
Uh,
pressure and it's always something you're like, hey, I thought of a thing we can add it to.
yeah, no, it's all good. I finished out this year like pretty strong, and like I finished a metal album with this band called Ascend the Helix.
That's a sick
There's
name.
there's someone that I just started working with this year just for fun. I do a lot of side you know, projects for like passion projects, and there's someone that we came in contact with, and um we finished our album basically in October. We did a track a month. I'm playing drums on that. I did the mixing and engineering for the drums. I think that's coming out next year, but we put out a couple of singles just for teasers. So if anyone looks that up, they'll find that stuff. That's fun stuff to do. Other than that, like it's just my weird experimental music. I've been writing a lot of chamber music. Someone's going to play my piano piece in Amsterdam next year,
Oh
which
my
I'm
god, that's
excited for.
amazing.
That's kind of that's a really, what is that piece called? Um, Emergences and Transformations, that piece. So it's like sets of instructions for people, and it starts a certain place, but it eventually gives them the option to generate it on their own. So it just gives them instructions after a while, meaning like there's not notated notes every single time.
Yeah,
It starts out that way and eventually disappears.
that's really fucking
So
cool.
I'm excited for that. That's like a 30-minute piece for piano and electronics. Um, that piece I've been working on that for a few years, but it's been an on and off thing. I'm not like, usually I finish those things in like a week
Yeah,
for some reason. But um, yeah, so there's that. There's other stuff too, but
that's amazing. I love that. That's our show. Thank you so much for joining us this week on DLC Required, podcast where gamers talk about gaming and whatever gamers talk about. It's going to be an exciting year ahead. I'm so excited to see all the games coming out. I know bets are on if GTA 6 actually gets here, but you bet we're going to have a lot coming up. So anyone you want to see, feel free to let us know. Otherwise, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful start to your new year, and we'll see you soon. Bye, guys.